Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you come to learn all the most efficient, powerful, abundant ways to grow their firm, sharpen their sales skills, and have consistent, increasing revenue year over year. I cover topics from pricing, sales, networking, objections, ideal clients, some marketing ideas, and really about how to increase your cash flow and profitability and set boundaries so you have the firm that you've always dreamt of. You're no longer giving away your time for free. You're no longer putting yourself on sale, and you are being paid for the value and worth that clients actually appreciate you for. So you'll learn tips and strategies as well as hear personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm of your dreams and the life full of abundance podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is a CPA since 1984. He's actually a recovering CPA from a Big 8 firm. He is now the founder of Verisage Institute, the leading think tank dedicated to educating professionals internationally. He also has a radio talk show called voiceamerica.com. He's been an author of 8 books. He's going to tell you about a couple of them today. He's also toured the world, spreading his value pricing message to over 275,000 professionals. He's been named on Accounting Today's 2000 to 2007. He's been named top 100 and top 10 most influential people in the profession. And he is presently resides in, he calls it Petaluma, but he also calls it Napa Valley, which most of you might know, in California. But before we welcome our special guest to the show, I've been helping accounting, tax, and bookkeeping firm owners have more freedom with their time and money, get paid first and upfront, and confidently charge the fees that you know you deserve. And I know that our system works, and I know I can help you create the firm you've always wanted, but it's up to you to take that next step. So if you want to explore what that looks like, head on over to theabundantcall.com to book your free session with myself and my team. We're going to talk about 3 things. Number 1, where your firm is at right now and the things that are keeping you stuck. Number 2, where you want to go with your firm and your life to ensure you're paid first, and also go through all the pitfalls along the way that will save you a ton of money in the process. And number 3, the exact next steps you can take to double your firm revenue. Every one of our success stories has started with this call, and it's turned into more confidence, charging premium fees, doubling your firm revenues, eliminating burnout, and feeling excited about the work that you have in your future. So head on over to theabundantcall.com if you'd like to explore what that could look like. And now let's welcome our very special guest, Ron Baker, to the show. Welcome, Ron, to the show.
Thanks, Michelle. It's great to be back.
Thank you so much for coming back and being here with us on the Abundant Accountant Podcast. It is a great honor to have you here. And for those people and listeners that don't know you, I have done your intro, but just in case, it's always great to hear it just from you. So if you could share with everyone who you are, and also you just wrote this amazing book. So if you could share a little bit about your book and where someone can find it, that would be great.
Well, I'm a recovering CPA and author of 8 books. The most recent one just came out last November called Time's Up, which is all about the subscription model, which is the topic I know we talked about last time I was on with you.
Yeah.
And I've also, the book before that was published in 2011, I believe, and that was Implementing Value Pricing. And that's something I did in my firm, Michelle, after I left the Big 8 firm that I worked for. So you now know how old I am, because it was a Big 8 firm, not a Big 5, Big 4. It was a Big 8. But I started my own firm in 1989, and there was nobody out there on the circuit talking about value pricing or fixed pricing. There was no consultants. There were no books on it, certainly not in the accounting space. But me and my partner just thought it was the right thing to do from a customer experience standpoint. We thought offering certainty in price was a better customer experience. And I wanted to be like Disney and FedEx and Lexus and American Express and all the companies I was studying that delivered phenomenal customer experience. So I got into this whole pricing issue from a customer experience standpoint, and we implemented it in 1989 in my firm. We made every mistake under the sun. We didn't do a lot of things that we should have, but the core idea was the right one. The customers loved it because we weren't any longer charging based on time. We didn't need to keep timesheets. The team loved that. So that change, that one change, it was scary as all get out, but that one change changed my life because I realized it works. The customers love it. It allowed us to make more money working less with fewer customers. And I started to write about this and teach it. And the teaching was like the proverbial fork in the road. And that changed my life because then I started teaching, consulting, wrote 8 books, went around the world teaching this. So yeah, I'm attached to this topic.
Awesome. I'm happy to have you here to talk about value pricing and what you've learned since 1989 and implementing this not only in your own firm, but also through seeing other firm owners implement what you taught and really coming to the surface to share how what you teach. And maybe we can talk about like the 4 main changes that a firm could make to go from hourly to value pricing and how that can really make an impact. Then I love how you said it, often offering certainty and price versus based on the amount of time it takes. And I'm a big preacher of this, so I'm very excited for our conversation today. And just it's an honor to have you here. So I'd love to hear, Ron, if you could share, maybe a little bit about when you were out. And I know we chatted a little bit before we started recording, but you did a Black Swan kind of case study and really honing in on what is it that you shared in the 4 different steps and how did you see the few flourish and maybe some of them fail, just like you said, you made your fair share of mistakes too.
Yeah, well, hopefully people, through when I started teaching this, of course, I started to dive into it a lot more and realize the mistakes I made. So hopefully the people I teach don't have to go through the same painful process of making mistakes that I made. I mean, that's why we go to experts, right? It's a shortcut to expertise. And so they've made all the mistakes probably, or at least a lot of them. But the Black Swan program was something that happened to me when I started working with bookkeepers up in Canada. There's an association up there of professional bookkeepers. It's now called CPP, which is Canadian Professional Bookkeepers. And I went up there and did a keynote, and we did a pre-conference session for a full day, and it was on value pricing, and it just blew the audience away. And we were sitting in a bar afterwards with the president and the person who invited me. And the guy looks at me and says, "Baker, you come to these events, you show up, you throw up great information, you blow people's mind, you put them in a state of silence, basically." He said, "But how many people actually implement this stuff?"
Exactly.
And I kind of looked at him and I said, it's roughly about 20%. I said, you're not going to get much more than that. And he said, "Well, what can we do about that?" And I said, "Well, let's start a project. Let's start a Black Swan project." I was probably reading Taleb's book at the time, The Black Swan. The
you
thing
weren't reading Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference about the Black Swan.
No. I think that came out later. This was
okay. This was back in the 80s. Just kidding.
No, it wasn't that far back. It was back in the 2000s, sometime 2011 or something like that. And anyway, we got sponsors for this program, the software publishers, and we admitted 5 Black Swans. And they had to go through an application process. That's how we found them. They were self-selected. They filled out a very lengthy questionnaire about their practice and what their goals were and why they wanted to enter the Black Swan and why they wanted to do value pricing. So to some extent, they were like immigrants. Immigrants are self-selected and they take risks. And that's why, they do so good wherever they land, because they are that self-selected entrepreneurial type. And we narrowed it down to 5 or 6 per program. And the program lasted for 6 months. And we would fly these people to Napa, which is in my backyard. And we would hole up in a hotel for 2 days, and we would break bread together and lunch and dinner and all of that. But I put them through a pretty intensive 2-day program about value pricing, all the essentials, all the theory, all the application, the why we offer 3 options, and how you fix a price, and how you deal with scope creep, and all those things. And then we would have group calls a couple times a month, and they would also have one-on-one calls with me to go over specific pricing for new customers, maybe, or how to reprice an old customer that they had. Most every Black Swan was hourly billing when they came into the program, and every one of them. And then we put over 60 people through this program over a period of 4 or 5 years, because I also ran a couple down here in the United States. Every one of them got rid of hourly billing, and every one of them dropped timesheets. To me, that's a success.
Yeah.
All by itself, by the way, because
Totally.
they stopped equating time spent with value, and they became obsessed with value. And it touched everything. Pricing touches everything in a firm because it's driven by your strategy. It's driven by your positioning. So most of them.
Let's talk about that, Ron, real quick, if you don't mind.
Sure.
How do you stop equating time spent with value for someone listening right now? If we were to break just that one element down, because like you said, it was a success. If you can stop the timesheets, you can stop the hourly billing. If you can just put a halt to that piece, what can you share on that today for a firm owner to take action? Because I'd love it if more than 20% of you guys take action on this. Because I'm all about taking action. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here and having awesome people like Ron here, because we don't want you just to sit here and listen and go, oh, that sounds really good. And then you stop listening to us, and then you go back to your day-to-day. What are the steps, or what can you share on how a firm owner can stop equating their time spent with the value that they provide?
This is a complex question, Michelle.
I know it is.
You're talking
we might
about,
have to go deep into it. I know it is slightly complex.
This is in our DNA. It's in my DNA.
It's in mine too, but
yeah,
not everybody's.
And it's a process of unlearning, and unlearning's brutal. The first thing I would tell people is go to Google and Google backwards bicycle, and watch that 7-minute video of a guy trying to ride a backwards bicycle.
Really? I never even heard of that.
It's incredible. The guy's got a video, and he's got a YouTube channel. I forget his name, but
okay, I'm going to go do that too.
The backwards bicycle, if you could post that in the show notes too, that'd be great, because this is an incredible video. This is what we lead with in this course.
Okay.
Because this is the equivalent of riding a backwards bicycle. And once you can do it, your brain just locks in on it. And then he went back and tried to ride a regular bicycle, and Michelle, he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. It took him over an hour, I think it was, to get back into something in his brain clicked, and then he was able to ride. Now I'm talking about a backwards bicycle, meaning when you turn the handlebars to the right, the wheel goes to the left.
Oh my God.
And vice versa. And everybody thinks they can do this. They cross their hands, they drive, and nobody can do it. Nobody can ride a backwards bicycle. I promise you, you'll fall right on your butt. You won't even go a foot. And he proves this in the video. It's a funny, hilarious video. And that's what this process is. So you have to understand the theory of value. And if we're going to replace a theory, and by the way, the billable hour and the timesheet, that's a theory. If we're going to replace a theory or try and get you to move away from it, I've got to give you some place to go. I've got to give you a better theory. And the theory is that value is completely subjective. It has nothing to do with the time that we spend. You and I could walk down the streets of Sandy.
It's made up.
Absolutely. It's complete. Your hourly rate, all your costs, your customers could care less about your costs. Nobody cares how long it took Honda to make their car, or how much it cost, or how much profit Honda made on their car. They only care, what's the value to me of owning this Honda versus the price I'm going to have to pay. Yep. And that's the whole point of value pricing. Both sides make a profit. Both the customer and the accountant make a profit. When we talk about profit in accounting, we only talk about the seller. When you get into the economics realm, when you start studying economics about this topic, and they've been all over this for centuries, by the way, so they own it much better than accountants do, they understand that both sides to a transaction profit. And we know this because there's that double thank you moment when you buy something, right? The clerk hands you whatever the item is, coffee, whatever, sweater, and says thank you. And we say thank you. Well, if only one side profited, somebody should say you're welcome, right? But both sides say thank you. And once you understand that value is subjective and it has nothing to do with your costs, then you start focusing on what the value is. I'll give you a real quick example.
Yeah.
A bottle of water. Coke knows how much it costs to produce a bottle of water. So what's the price of that bottle of water? Well, that's interesting because that depends on where you buy it. If you buy it at Sam's Club,
If you buy it in the desert, it's going to be very expensive.
Exactly. But if you even buy it at Costco or a hockey rink or a NASCAR track, it's going to be more expensive. Well, that's fascinating because it's the same H2O. But here's the real thing. Not the cost, not the price, but what's the value of that bottle of water? Well, if you're in the desert for 4 days without water, it's worth almost infinite, right? You'll trade everything you own for it and maybe then some. But if you're washing your dog with the same quantity of water at home, now it's got a much lesser value. And if you're flooded in your basement with water, now it's got a negative value. You got to pay somebody to take it out. So here's the question. Can accounting explain that difference in value? I'm not talking about the cost. I'm not talking about the price. I'm talking about the value. Does GAAP, does accounting have anything to say about the value in the desert versus the basement? Not a thing. Because all GAAP does is record transactions of an agreed upon price after the fact. That's all it does. GAAP does not have a theory of value. This is why we accountants struggle with this. We try and fit everything into the GAAP framework, assets minus liabilities equal capital. But that is silent with respect to value. This is why when a company pays over market value for another company, what do we call it? Goodwill. Goodwill is the name that we give to our ignorance because we don't have a theory of value. So this is why that theory of value, the subjective theory, is so important. Once you get that and you see how that works, you're 50% home. Now you can start riding the backwards bike and start implementing some of the strategies that come behind that, like offering 3 options and things like that. But that first one's a hurdle.
It is. I mean, the first one, you just got to stop equating your time spent with value, and you need to go watch the backward bicycle video a few times. And so was that the start of your 2-day conference with these 5 clients, or I guess Black Swans,
the Black Swans
taking through?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And we started there. And then, of course, in my book, Implementing Value Pricing, I lay out the 8 steps to value pricing. So I'll recite them here for you, and we can maybe go through the first few or whatever. But one is you have a value conversation with the customer. So you're sitting down with the customer, and what you're trying to figure out is, are they in the desert? Are they home washing their dog? Or are they in the basement flooded with water? Now, this is not to take advantage of them if they're in the desert. We're trying to build lifetime relationships. But you want to know the context, what they're trying to do. Can you even serve this customer? What are their value expectations? What do they really care about? They'll come to you just like we as patients go to doctors with some type of presenting problem, right? A fever, a headache, belly pain, whatever. But that's just the symptom. The doctor has to find the cause. We have to find the cause. The customer could be complaining about something, but it could be a reflection of a deeper problem that we can help them fix. So we really have to have an in-depth value conversation. In other words, we have to start with the scope of value, not the scope of work, but the scope of value. If you went to a contractor and said, I want you to build my dream house, he would have no idea what to build, right? What do you mean dream house? Is that a McMansion? Is it a ranch style house? I mean, without an architectural blueprint, he has no idea type of materials, with all of that. That's why we go to architects, and architects ask us questions about our life. The good architects might even live with your family for a week or two to figure out, do they entertain? How do they live in their house? Where do they spend most of their time? I mean, this is how you get to real value, is you spend more time uncovering it and talking about it rather than talking about scope of work or here's the 8 things we need to do for you in the next, 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever.
Or asking your client, well, what do you need? It's like they didn't
Yeah. What
come
do you,
to you. They don't know what they need.
that's
It's
right.
it's our job to be the architectural designer, as you just said, in order to understand, are they in the desert? Are they in with their dog, washing their dog with the water? Or are they in a basement full of water? And I think that's a big misconception that I hear, especially with the clients that I work with here at the Abundant Accountant and that enroll in our 8-week sales mastery training. Like, oh, well, Michelle, I just ask them what they need. And that's how I do it. I'm like, I can tell you right now, a person like me, a regular, general business owner human, we don't know anything about accounting. We don't know what we need. It,
Yep.
and it's just like you said, they go to the contractor and say, I want my dream house. They don't know what they need. They need to be told what they need based on your expertise.
Absolutely. That's what's different about being a professional. The patient understands the symptoms, but the doctor understands the causes. Yeah. And we're in the same position with our customers. Yeah, they may come to us with specific needs, but we can go beyond just that because that's just the tip of the iceberg. And so you have that value conversation with the customer, and then you go back to your firm and you price the customer, not the services. It's not so much about piling services brick by brick by brick, but actually pricing the customer, inferring the value. Here's another tough thing about this, Michelle, and I hate to start with the tough stuff, but we have to, because we're talking about changing a mindset here. The only way I'm going to change your behavior is if I change your mind. I mean, yeah, you could change your behavior and that could change your mind. Unfortunately, we can't do that in a class or a book or a podcast, right? I got to work on your mindset first. I got to work on your beliefs. And when it comes to value, it's not a number. Value is not a number. It's a feeling. It's a feeling. Price is a number. Cost is a number. Fine, but not value. Value is completely subjective. And it can change tomorrow. I'm sitting here talking to you into an Apple laptop computer I paid $3,500 for. Why on earth would I pay $3,500 for an Apple when I could buy a Dell, HP, or some other brand for 1/5 that? Because of a feeling. I can't show you an ROI spreadsheet I did on my Apple laptop computer and why it was worth 5 times more than the Dell. That's crazy. I did it because I have an affection for Apple. I think it's easier to use. I love it, blah, blah, blah. They're all feelings. They're all feelings. It's not an ROI calculation. Sure, there are things we can put in an ROI calculation that we can do for our customers, tax savings, increase profitability, and save costs, whatever. But there's also a big part of our work that I call spiritual value, which means it can't be measured. It's that social capital that we have in our firm. We can refer them to experts. It's that feeling they have about they're in good hands. They can talk to us. We're relatable. We have good communication skills, good bedside manner, if you will. All of those things cannot be quantified numerically. And yet, I believe they're 2/3 to 3/4 of our value. And even that's a guess. But they're a significant chunk of our value. If you look at why most people leave accountants, it's because they don't feel like they're being treated well.
Yep. 100%.
So all of those things, so pricing the customer, and that means you develop and you price 3 options. So what, good, better, best, small, medium, large, right? Green card, gold card, platinum card. Ever wonder why businesses offer us three choices? There's a good reason for it, because what they're trying to do is let the customer self-select into the value price option that works best for them. And usually when you offer 3 options, our empirical evidence on this is about 2/3 to 3/4 of the time, you will sell the middle option. And maybe 10% of the time you will sell the top option, and the rest of the time you'll sell the bottom option.
Got a question for you on that.
Sure.
I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
So I have a different philosophy. I do understand that the value is not the number and it's a feeling and they get to choose. I share with the clients that work with me that you're just going to choose the feeling that works best, because it's like when you go to the doctor, The doctor doesn't say, oh, well, if you have a tumor, we can take out a third of it, we can take out all of it, or we can just take out, half of it. Which one sounds best to you? I'm under the belief that, hey, between your spiritual value and between the fact that it's not a number and it's a feeling, and you get to choose whatever that may be, you just choose what is just going to solve this client's problem. Remember, they don't know what they need. They want their dream house. You're the architect. You're going to put it together. Just give them exactly what they need. And especially with bookkeeping or cleanup projects or resolution, we can't just choose part of it. We need the whole enchilada. What are your thoughts on that? Because I understand in their mind they could come up with 3 different options, but when it comes to sharing it with the client in the meeting, I'm of the mindset and of the teaching where you're just going to choose the number. You're going to go based on the feeling and your spiritual value and everything that you're doing for them. And then you're going to deliver that. Thoughts on that?
Thoughts on that is I used to think the same thing. If you go back to the very first book I wrote, which is Professional's Guide to Value Pricing, came out in 1998, I said, never offer a Coke customer a Pepsi and vice versa. Give them exactly what they want. Give them one option. Mm-hmm. I changed my mind because I was wrong. Behavioral economics, customer psychology, how we buy, why we buy, how we make decisions to buy, all say that we humans like choices. And when you put 3 choices in front of the human brain, the question changes from should I work with Michelle to how should I work with Michelle? In other words, we appreciate being given choices. And that changed my mind. And the empirical evidence for this is overwhelming. And I'm actually quite embarrassed I was wrong about it for a year or two, because it's just overwhelming. When we started offering options in firms, had them give 3 options, it was amazing. And it was very, very powerful. And Michelle, it's not just, I'm not saying that you're going to say, take out half the tumor. I'll give you an analogy. The best way I can explain this. We're not saying you differentiate on the quality of your services. The airlines have to fly the plane safely for first class, business class, and coach, right?
Correct.
They have to land everybody safe, keep them all alive. Otherwise, it's a really bad strategy to kill your customers. So their quality, their maintenance, all of that has to be spot on. You can't cut corners on it. You can't reduce it.
You can't compromise in those areas.
Not at all.
But you can compromise on the size of your seat and if it lays flat.
That's what you can differentiate based upon
correct.
Service. And now you could say that cleanup, do they want it next week or do they want it in 6 months? And you can make differentiation.
Okay, that now makes
based
sense.
on that. That's what I'm talking about.
Time of deliverable. Okay.
The time of deliverable, access to you, access to your team. Will you, are you going to text them back on weekends? All of those things can be used to differentiate. We have a 7 T's model of what you can differentiate on. Access to your technology. Are you going to let them into your portal? Are you going to give them access to your educational events? All of these things are just services. The airlines aren't cut, aren't.
I appreciate you clarifying this because I think there's a big misconception when people are like, oh, 3 options. It's like, no, it's not 3 different prices for the exact same thing. It's, hey, here's what it is to fly your plane to get the landing perfect, smooth, no bumps. But if you want first class and you want to get on the plane first, get off the plane first, and have your shower and have your wine and have your cheese and have your meals and have everything taken care of for you and get that priority service, then it's this.
Exactly.
Very good. I'm glad you clarified that because there's a lot of misconception of that. But I only have firm owners that want to be first class, so.
Well, that's good because we all have customers that some of them want to be first class, certainly not all of them, but some people just want to buy the best and get the white glove treatment, period.
Correct.
And here's the thing. If you never offer a platinum option, guess what?
You're never going to have platinum. You're never going to have platinum client.
Exactly. And so that's why this makes so much sense. I've actually gotten to arguments about this, and I don't
I
know if
bet this would be
I,
so fun to argue about.
I can tell you somebody who thinks this is absolutely nuts, and actually has your philosophy, what you earlier told me about giving people exactly what they want, not giving them options. That's the founder of Go Proposal, and I think he's way off the rails on this. And I've had exchanges with him on LinkedIn, and he just doesn't get it. And there's nothing you can do. I can't change somebody's mind. All I can say is go look at the empirical evidence out there. It's overwhelming that, otherwise, why do so many businesses keep giving us three options? If it didn't work, I mean, the Sears catalog did it, for crying out loud. Good, better, best. Everything they sold was good, better, best. Everything. And it works.
Yeah, I'm all about just give them the best, but it's choosing that's the kind of firm that you want. Now, you want some clients that are just going to be, in general coach seats. And then you're going to have some clients in business class and some clients in first class. This totally makes sense. But if you just want your clients to be in first class and that's just the service you want to offer because you don't want a lot of clients to begin with, then that's okay too.
Well, see, that's where I think the subscription model is different than value pricing.
It is.
In a subscription model, you can do exactly what you just said. In fact, in subscription, I'm not sure you need to give choices. And I'm not sure you couldn't give two choices in subscription because we see many.
You could do two options. Yep.
But that is a completely different business model. And I can tell you what you can't do is you can't run a value pricing firm and a subscription firm in the same firm. It's like having two spouses. You can try it, but you're not going to like the result.
It might be good for a little bit, but it might get a little rocky after.
No, a brand can only stand for one thing. Yeah. And this goes back to strategy and positioning. You can't sell Rolls Royces and Chevys out of the same dealership. You'll not only confuse the customers in the market, but you'll confuse your internal operations as well. Right?
Yeah.
So you've got to be very clear. These are different business models we're talking about between subscription and value pricing.
Well, so we already talked about subscription, so let's stay back. I want to hear about the Black Swan results because I know you had your 5 people, and going back to, the results of what you've implemented. And I know you have 8 steps, and we could probably be here for 3 hours talking. But firm owners, as I know, because you're a recovering CPA, they're really busy. And I don't think everyone wants to sit here and listen to us for 3 hours. So you can buy Ron's books. Where can they buy all of your 8 books?
Oh, Amazon. And I will even send you a Journal of Accountancy article I wrote on the 8 steps of how to implement value pricing in your firm.
So Ron's going to send me that link. You guys can all go to the show notes because you've read enough books in your career. You read books every week. You're in webinars. You're in CE trainings. You can get all the how to. But if we don't change, like Ron said, the behavior, then we can't change the mind. In order to change the mind, we have to change the behavior. And that's what we're talking about, is a shift in mindset and a shift of thinking. So you could be like, oh, this is possible for me too. And it is. It completely is possible. So back to your Black Swan test of 5. Can we continue on that?
Yes. So let me tell you.
I'm very curious.
Yeah. So we did this program, and it was about 6 months. And again, we had these group calls where they all shared their challenges, what worked, what failed, what frustrations they were having. And then they had access to me for one-on-one coaching where we could talk through a particular client proposal, new client proposals, converting a hourly billing customer to a value pricing customer, all of those issues that come up. And I remember one of the Black Swans, and we'll call her Jenna. She started out, she had a $70,000 top line. And I forget her bottom line. It was maybe 35 or 40 grand. I forget. Solo. And I think she had maybe a part-time bookkeeper that helped her do some things, but she was basically a solo. And she started embracing the value pricing. She offered 3 options. She even created a diagnostic test that she would put people through and charge them for it. So rather than, giving away the free meeting to interview a customer and see if you're a good fit, she'd come to the table right out of the gate with something of value, go into their books, take a look around, put them through this diagnostic checkup. I forgot what she called it, but she had a name for it. It was branded. It was really creative. And she doubled in the first year after implementing value pricing and converting her customers to value pricing from hourly billing. She went to 140. She hired some people. The next year, she doubled again to 280. And the next year, she doubled again to like 550,000. Um, Incredible increase to the bottom line, even though she was adding people. And it just changed her life. And here's the lesson, Michelle. It's not just pricing. She did other things with her strategy and her positioning. She niched down. She specialized. She got rid of low value customers. She finally found her space in the market and focused narrowly, because it's pricing is not, that's the tail of the dog. The dog is the strategy and the positioning, and you can't let the tail wag the dog. The dog has to wag the tail. And so we people want to start with pricing because, yeah, that's where the low hanging fruit is, and definitely there's low hanging fruit there. But because pricing touches everything else, if you start fiddling with your pricing, I promise you're going to fiddle with your strategy and your positioning, because it's
Yeah.
a business model change.
Yeah. It's not just the pricing, like you said, and
It's not.
there's so many elements to it. And like Ron and I could be here for days because I love talking to you. But niching down, being specialized, getting rid of the lower paying clients and the dead weight, I call it, and being able to really stand out. What do you think it was for Jenna that stood out from the other five and made her kind of like that black swan? What are some of those other things that she implemented that you told her to do that maybe others just said, you know what, nah, I'm going to pass. I'm going to try it my own way. I'm going to keep fiddling and
Well, they all
see.
made great progress. She just stands out because she doubled for so many years in a row, and that just always kind of sticks in my mind. And I did, but the other one, they all made tremendous progress. They all fired customers. They all began to choose customers rather than chase customers. They started to get very, very selective about who they took on as a customer, because they realized they only had so much capacity. Because these are smaller firms, even with 2 or 3 employees, you've only got so much capacity, and you've got to husband that capacity. You've got to protect it for opportunity that could come along that could be really great. But if we're running at 90, 95%, 100% capacity, we don't have time to take care of our existing customers, let alone add new ones to the ship, right?
Mhm.
So they all did that. But she was just very receptive. She glommed onto these ideas early, and she just kept doing things. And I would say the biggest thing, Michelle, is she didn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Mhm.
She would
Yeah.
just launch whatever she was thinking of, like this diagnostic test or 3 options. And she realized it's not set in stone. If it doesn't work, I can change it. I'll get
Yeah.
market feedback and I'll make adjustments if it's not working well with my target customers. And so she wasn't afraid of failure.
Hmm.
I gave all of these black swans the permission to fail, because I equated it to, look, you're learning a new software package. If you changed your word processor or went from, I don't know, Office to Google or what, there's probably going to be a dip in your productivity, right? Until you get used to the new program and come up on the other side higher than where you were with the old program. But that's going to take some time. And we all have to ride that dip when we're learning something new, just like we have to fall off the backwards bike. Because I'll tell you, when you watch the backward bike video, you'll realize training wheels wouldn't do you any good. You're going to fall. You're going to fall and scrape yourself. It's going to hurt, and you're going to get back up and you're going to try it again. And you've got to be willing to do that. And she was just one of those risk
Willing to do
takers.
that.
She
And
was
I think
willing to do
and I
that.
think that's with anything, if you change the business model to value pricing or change it to subscription, not only do you have to pick one, but you have to be willing to fail. And I think making sure that you're not afraid of the failure, and I think like you did too, you gave them permission. And Ron, are you giving everyone permission here to fail if they choose to read your book and make a change?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
because
we're giving you permission.
absolutely. And in fact, there's so much advice out there now. There's so many people. There's prior Black Swans running programs teaching value pricing. I mean, there's so much help out there available and so many resources online.
Mhm.
And I just gave you the link to the Journal of Accountancy article, Michelle,
Cool.
which I wrote, which is all about pricing on purpose, exactly what we're talking about. And it goes through each of the 8 steps. And by the way, in this article, there are 11 exhibits attached to it. Questions to ask the customer during the value conversation, questions to ask yourself before establishing a price, how to develop options. It goes through every one of the 8 steps
Love it.
with additional exhibits that people can use. A sample fixed price agreement and a sample change order is included as well for when scope creep occurs, which is later on in the 8 steps. So that's a great resource for people to check out.
Ron, thank you so much for being here with us on The Abundant Accountant. I could be here for plenty more hours, but I think you've given so much of your time and have made a contribution to so many firm owners. And, everyone here, you have permission to fail, and you could be Jenna and just follow some of the steps. And I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you,
again
Michelle,
for being here with us.
Thanks for being the abundant accountant. Couldn't agree with that mindset more.
Well, I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you, writing 8 books. So looking forward to having you here again in the future.
Would love to. Thank you very much.
What an amazing episode with Ron Baker today. He is just a wealth of knowledge. I really could sit here for 3 to 4 hours and talk to him. But I know you are all busy and have things to do and things to implement. So, number 1, go watch the video on the backwards bike. He said, if we Google it, we'll find it. Number 2, make sure to figure out and listen to all the 8 steps on value pricing if that is the direction you would like to take your firm. You have to pick which way you want to take your firm. So listen to his book, buy his book, go to Amazon. He has a lot of books. And number 3, if you are a firm owner, accounting, tax, or bookkeeping firm owner, and you want to get paid up front, you want to confidently charge the fees you deserve, you're in luck. I have a system that works, and I can help you create the firm you've always wanted. But it's up to you to take that next step. So head on over to the Abundant Call right now to book your free session with myself or my team, and we will cover 3 important areas: where your firm's at right now, where you want your firm to be to ensure you're paid first and avoid any pitfalls that might come along, and number 3, the exact steps you can take to double your firm revenue. Every one of our clients, all of our success stories started with this call. So it's your opportunity to turn all of this into more confidence, charging premium fees, doubling revenue, and eliminating burnout so you can feel excited about your work again. So head on over to theabundantcall.com. We look forward to speaking with you, and we'll see you in the next episode.